everyone, and welcome to this discussion on translating in the classroom. It's titled To Translate or Not to Translate. And I'm with two of my colleagues today. So would you like to introduce yourselves? Well, first of all, I'm Peter. You may have seen me already, but who are you? Who are you? Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a teacher here at Auxinity. I've been teaching here for about 2 years, and I have a broad age range of students from kids who are like 8 or 9 to doing business English, and also teaching retirees who like to go travelling as well.
My name's Rob, so like these guys, I work here at Auxinity. Same as Michael, I've got mainly adults actually, but a few kids classes, and I'm also involved in the TEFL as well.
Yeah. So we're going to have a discussion today about translating in the classroom, but also you can contribute to the discussion as well. So I invite you to share your comments and your opinions and even questions for us in the comment section of YouTube. You have to subscribe first, and then also in Microsoft Teams too. So, let's start. First of all, I'd like maybe also for you to think about, what opinions do you have on translating? So, are you someone that says no translation whatsoever? In my classroom, it's only English, nothing else. And maybe you only know English, maybe you don't have a second language to be able to rely on. But maybe you use Google, I don't know. Or are you someone that thinks, no, actually I do like translating, it helps people learn, and maybe you're someone who's in between. So maybe you think there's some situations where you can translate. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, okay, over to you guys. So what's your opinion then? All right, Michael, what's your opinion on translating? Do you think that one should avoid translation completely, or are there situations where you should?
Well, I think perhaps you should, because I think it's good to keep the student engaged and in the zone for that 1 hour where they're just speaking English, and I think they'll walk away taking more of that English with them.
Mm-hmm.
But you just can't have it as black and white like that. I think it just depends on the student and their ability.
Yeah, sure.
I think it can't be like that.
All right.
I think in an ideal world, it's easy to say no translation at all. The reality is, depending on the student, like you say, maybe you do.
Okay.
Or maybe we're tempted sometimes
to
translate.
So what are the benefits of not translating in the classroom? So let's say that you're someone who says no, only English in the classroom, that's all. So what are the benefits of doing that?
It kind of gets the students thinking in English, and they're not maybe trying to speak Spanish amongst themselves, so they're fully, like you say, for the whole hour, fully English.
You might get more words cropping up that wouldn't have even been in the syllabus or in your activities. Some words might come up in conversation that you were like, oh, well, this wouldn't have come up if we hadn't been trying to talk more in English.
Sure. So what are the dangers of translating then? So can you think of anything that might come up that will hinder learning?
If you translate once, the students might be then very tempted to keep asking you time after time, every other word, the translation.
What about, are there any words that you think don't translate very well? Well, we're talking about English and Spanish here, so we're talking from that perspective. Obviously, if you're teaching in China, well, most of the words will be different. Well, if not all the words will be different, right? So, I guess there's that, and maybe of course you've got things like false friends as well. I suppose.
False friends. I mean, as much as cognates can help, false friends do the exact opposite.
Cool. All right, Michael, can you tell me a time when you have felt the need to translate, or maybe I don't know whether you've actually translated or not, but you felt that this might help me move the classroom on. Can you tell me about it?
Although we're saying classroom, most of my students I have one-on-one or two. Right. So it's a very small group. But like, for example, if I have a student, there's Keem, who I teach, and he's 8 years old, and his attention span is very low. The class has to be reduced to 45 minutes because of his attention span. So I really want to get the most out of him in that 45 minutes. He gets very frustrated with himself. He hits himself to try and he's physically abusing himself to try and get the word out of his head.
Right,
okay, look, we need to move the class on. Get more words into your vocabulary.
Okay.
This is what we're going to try.
Is that an extreme example, or do you feel that's down to his age?
I think it's age and ability.
Okay.
I think both combined.
Sure. And so, what do you think, Rob? Do you have any maybe advice or something maybe you could give?
I mean, I guess if it's that extreme, I think that does sound quite like a very extreme case. Then I think translation actually
is okay.
Is okay. You know, if you can see a student physically getting really wound up or frustrated, getting upset, then then maybe translation isn't so
Yeah,
bad.
Perhaps. And how often would you translate then for that student? Would it be a lot, or maybe just once or twice?
Well, we talk about trying to do some kind of like lives almost, like so you have 3 lives or something like this.
Yeah.
So you're
Like strikes. Yeah, sure.
So you're trying to kind of limit, or I don't know, something like this, or try and think of some alternative way of limiting to him being able to translate it. So he knows it's not going to be a regular thing.
Yeah. No, I like that because you're turning it into a game.
Yeah.
And kids like games when they're learning. Rob, can you think of a situation where you felt a little bit tempted to translate in the classroom?
Yeah, I mean, for me, not so much with age because I don't have too many classes with kids, but maybe with a level, sometimes with a group of low-level students.
Okay, low levels, right. Yeah.
If you've explained, and obviously I always give plenty of examples to start with. Translation is not the first thing I jump to. You try to give examples. You'll try to do a drawing if it's possible. I'm not much of an artist, but maybe then
you might translate that.
Maybe, or sometimes I have had students say the word in Spanish, and I maybe have given them a little nod in their head to say, okay, that's it. So I don't know if that counts as translating. But I like to think it as confirming more.
Yeah, well, it might be interesting to know what actually really defines as translation. So I don't know if you have some comments at home, if you want to write some comments about what you consider as actual, this is translation, maybe this isn't, maybe. I don't know, I'm not sure what
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Just that, like, I used to teach a class of, like, 8 people, and they would quite often talk to each other in Spanish and try and give each other the equivalent in Spanish so they could write it down. But even when they did that, I would always say, look, just to make sure, don't rely on there always being a translation. Because there is no translation. Even if they already got it, I would say, you can't rely on this. This isn't how it works.
Yes.
There isn't a direct translation.
Yeah,
so just don't count on that happening.
Yeah. So I think, you raise a good point, because I think that it's important to see yourself as not just a teacher, but you're kind of consultant in a way. You're sort of telling someone that this is the best way to learn English, because I know because I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And they might think they know the best way to learn, but they might be right or they may be wrong. So it's good to kind of assert yourself as a teacher. So I think it's good. Okay, you mentioned about levels then, so and low levels, and there might be some words where people don't understand. Are there any particular types of words that you think that people struggle with?
I mean, if modal verbs.
Modal verbs, yeah, maybe. Or like, was it grammar or vocabulary or types of nouns?
For a lot of the time, for the words they struggle with, it just comes up in, maybe it's a word that comes up in conversation, or it's a word that we have in text. I can't put my finger on it. It's always when I do this, or when I do that. It depends on the group. And the context. So if the word's in a text, it depends on the context of the word. And
what about you, Michael? Do you find any particular types of verbs? Is it grammar? Is it vocabulary? Is it a type of noun? Is it a verb? Or
I think part of me wants to say it's grammar, but I don't actually think that's true. I think there are just some words that people think, I don't know what that is. And maybe it's more abstract things that are harder to describe or explain, but I'm not...
So just an abstract noun, maybe?
I'm not... I don't think from experience that's really happened so much. It's just generally across the board.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. What other ways do you think you can help teach a low level? Do you have any ideas? Do you have any low level students that you have different ways to try and change how you convey a message or teach something?
I guess really it's the same. I mean, I think it's with the images that we use.
Images,
that's going to be the way that's what we're doing it.
What about target language? So would you ever translate with target language?
Again, for me, it doesn't really, I don't know if it comes down to it being whether it's target language or just a word that pops up in conversation. It's the same.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
I think a lot of my students are sort of mid level. So through context, they usually get it.
Yeah.
But quite often when we read a passage, they'll understand the context of it. And I'm saying, that's fine, but I want you to get this word. So you have to really focus on every word and make sure they do understand it. And you have to keep giving continuous examples and make sure you're approaching the word from different angles and giving different kinds of examples, not just in the same structure. So then they'll be like, oh, okay.
In fact, yesterday I had a class with a trainee and the students really struggled with the word backfire. Backfire, so we were trying to give us plenty of examples.
Yes.
And they were really struggling with it in the end, and they were trying to figure out between amongst themselves what it
Yeah.
was, and in the end they came to a conclusion there was no Spanish word. So,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, so
that was we were saying forget trying to think of it in Spanish, just think of the English word.
Yes,
You know.
Sure.
But yeah.
Would you say that you're strict with Would you ever say, right, to maybe, I know you have exceptions, but in general, would you say that no? I'd say no Spanish in the classroom, only English, please.
With my kids, I try to be, but at the same time, I want there to be a level of respect kind of in the situation as well, and it to be fun for them as well, because I want it to be an enjoyable class. Sure. So I try and keep them on side, and if that means translating a little bit for them, more than perhaps I want to, then sometimes I will do it.
What about you, Rob? Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think if it's got to slow the whole class down as well, if I don't want to spend too much time focused on one word, especially if it's not the aim of the activity or whatever, then maybe it's not too bad. But I try to, when I have a group for the first time, I just say I don't speak Spanish, I don't understand Spanish.
Sure. That's a good
because
idea.
if I think back to when I first moved here and I didn't speak Spanish, then they didn't even rely on me for the translation because they knew I didn't have a clue what they were talking about.
Right.
So now I try to go in with that attitude and say,
I think
speak Spanish. And sometimes they'll ask actually, they'll be like, at the start of the class, do you speak Spanish? I'm like,
how long have you lived here? Do you speak Spanish?
Yes, but they believe you when you say you don't. You've been here for many years and you don't speak Spanish. They believe
you're English.
You're English.
Exactly.
Have you ever considered just moving on, just saying, just forget about the word, it's not important, let's talk about something else?
Yes, if it's a word that never really comes up, but has come up maybe in a passage or is in conversation because it's not in the words we were looking at today, but actually it's not something that maybe I would use once a year or whatever. Sure. 80% of your vocabulary you don't use, then I would probably move on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You agree?
I would agree. Yeah. I wouldn't spend too much time bothering about a word that they're never going to use.
I also wanted to add that with some of the adult students that I teach, I can be strict with them and still have that kind of good dynamic with them, because you can be kind of like, oh well, I'm not going to translate it for you. We're going to sit here as long as you need to, or whatever. You can make it into a fun kind of situation. Sure. With kids, I don't think that really works, but with adults, you can do that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. Well, I think we've got some comments right now, so why not have a look at some of these? So let's just scroll up to the top. Okay. All right. Some of these are going to be comments and some are going to be questions, so we'll just see what we have. I try not to translate as much as possible because when we learn our native language as kids, we don't have a base language that we translate from. Translating makes it harder to think in English. Okay. Do you agree with this point?
Can I?
So if we go back to the top again, it mentions about how when we're kids we don't translate, we only have one language. Sure. So if you can do it as a kid, then why can't we do it as an adult?
True. Well, we talk about acquiring a language as a kid rather than learning, whereas here the students are learning a language.
Right. Okay. It's a different brain process. It's true.
For me, yeah.
I think it is. But
I get the idea. I get the idea behind it.
If it works for a kid, then try and create the environment. If we go up again and have a look. Again, it also says translating makes it harder to think in English. Do you agree?
Because you're going back and forth between languages?
You're flipping, yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
How about I flip things over, actually? So what about we talk about how you are learning or have learned Spanish?
Yeah.
So as a learner, from that perspective, have you felt that it's better to think in two languages, to constantly check and to translate, or do you feel that you're learning more when you're in a classroom, for example, and you're just letting it flow and you're just talking? So what do you think as a learner of Spanish?
For me, I've learned a lot of Spanish because I live with 4 Spaniards, but at the same time they're all from the south, so it's a little bit tricky. So it's been kind of difficult for me because I would like ideally to go in there and only speak Spanish with them, but the Spanish is so tricky to understand sometimes that sometimes they need to translate.
Right.
And I don't want to feel like the outsider who understands nothing.
Sure.
So in that situation, but
like
when I studied a little bit when I first came over, it was mostly in Spanish, and that was better in general.
What about you?
Learning Spanish, I would like to be in an environment where it was Spanish, say if I was doing a class, an hour of only in Spanish. Having said that, I would be translating in my head, even if the teacher wasn't translating for me. I would see a word and I would think, okay, that, and I would translate it into English.
Sure.
I don't know.
So you think that maybe it's a natural response for the brain to translate the word? Maybe.
I think you're always going to
the subconscious
go back,
thing.
whether you,
I
mean,
until
you're always going to go back,
until
you're fluent, and you can say, right, I can speak this language like a native, and you're completely bilingual or whatever, then I think you're always going to translate.
Perhaps it's broken down into fluency and then discovering a new word and trying to understand that word, perhaps. Right, what else do we have? What do you advise your trainees to translate or not to translate at low levels? Okay,
obviously
you teach the TEFL, so what do you advise?
So, I mean, obviously we would say no translating.
Yeah.
And I think, we've given some examples here, but 99.9% of the time there is no need to translate. You can always find a way around it, whether it is through an image or whatever, So definitely.
I would say on this, if I can, I'd say that if you learn how to teach a low level without translating, I think you learn how to teach English.
Yeah.
That's a fundamental. I think that's a real. If you get that right, everything else is so much easier.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So for trainees, I would encourage them to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of them can't. So we have some people who move from England, for example, and they've just arrived in Barcelona, for example, and they can't speak a single word, so they can't translate anyway.
Yeah.
And certainly Google translates or another app that you might use. I don't know whether without advertising Google, but I would say that's those sorts of things, they get you into a bit of trouble maybe sometimes. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's why if not having Spanish would be an advantage actually.
Yes, I guess so.
And it would encourage the students to not rely on.
Yeah. I think what I've seen with seeing people who are growing from trainees is that I would say that they find it easy at the beginning not to translate because they don't know how to.
Yeah.
But when they start learning Spanish, all of a sudden they have to learn it. They have to learn how not to translate. They have to stop themselves.
Yeah.
And so you're learning a new skill later in time.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. Okay, not sure what they agree with, but we'll soon say. I don't usually translate, but what about if there is no way around it? For example, with objects like screwdriver. Okay. You can get an image of the screwdriver.
Yeah.
Maybe this person's written thinking you can't bring one into class. I wouldn't bring a screwdriver into class. That's slightly dangerous. I would say that if it's
you can use it in actions as well. I mean, you can.
I think the difficult, because I alluded to this earlier when I asked about certain nouns. I would say that the difficult words to avoid translation are things like justice or peace or excuse me, or other abstract nouns, because you don't have images and you're kind of, well, I don't know what, maybe you guys have an idea, how would you teach justice? I don't know, maybe someone can
I mean, it would have to be
that.
through examples, I guess.
Examples, or maybe through family words. So justice is similar to judge, and maybe you have a picture of Judge Judy. I don't know. Who knows? What else do we have here? I have a similar issue with sieve. Oh, the word sieve. Okay, both verb and noun. I can never explain or draw it. Okay. Yeah. I guess. What would you do?
Again,
how would you explain sieve?
I would use an image for this one.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think to use an image is fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because you don't translate.
I was going to say, does that class as translating if you're just showing?
Does it?
I don't know, but you're giving them the answer.
If
you're trying to explain.
But it's through a different process, I would say. So
no, I'm just asking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's a fair question. I think I would say that doesn't count. But to sieve, I mean, I suppose when you're baking, you use a sieve, and so I would say that you put it in context, because you would include the word sieve in some sort of activity to do with baking, you know?
Yeah.
So today we're going to learn about baking, and then you prepare all the images, you prepare maybe a video and you show the process, and then that way they're learning words to do with that.
Yeah.
If it was me and, I really struggled to teach the word sieve, but actually the activity was about, I don't know, going to the airport, I might say, you know what, let's look at this word later. You're not going, it's not life or death, you know?
Yeah. So that's an example of what we were saying before. Is it actually necessary
to learn it.
To learn every single word.
I
in
would
the
say
context.
Rome wasn't built in a day, you know. We can't learn everything all at
Yeah.
once. So, okay, what else do we have? So translating makes language fluency harder in the long term. Don't cheat, and you'll reap the benefits from that. Learn English. Don't treat it as just another way to talk. That would be my advice. What do you think? It's
Very
good
good.
advice. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Conversation over. No, that was quite. Yeah, I like that. That's quite succinct. So yeah, very good. After many years learning English in Spain, I can say that I didn't become fluent until I was able to immerse myself fully in the language. Most mistakes I made were because of literal translations.
Yeah.
Which is what
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
And this
saying
is
as well.
this is where having Spanish actually can work to your advantage, and because you know why students
Yes.
are making the mistakes they are, because
Yeah,
you
you can
can
spot.
see that they're
It's true,
translating
yeah.
literally
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Spanish into English. So
Mm.
although we just said not having
Yeah,
Spanish
it's true.
was an advantage for some things, for having Spanish can be an
Correct.
advantage for
Yeah.
this.
And I've spoken to people who are high level. I mean, they're pretty much fluent, and they say something, and I think, sounds right, but it kind of sounds wrong as well, you know. And that's because they probably translated, because they wouldn't have heard it from someone who speaks English. So yeah, so that's a good point. I think that if you really want to be fluent, you really want to talk like a native speaker, which is what people usually want. I mean, that's what I want. I wanted to do that in Spain. Then I would say that that's important. Okay, what else do we have? What about multilingual groups? I think this means, what if you're in a class and you've got someone from Spain, someone from China, someone from France, someone from Portugal? Well, what can you do? Can you translate in those classes?
You can't really. You have to
No.
stick to English, right? I to be honest, I haven't had that experience, so I can't offer what my solution would be. But I would have thought it would be just stick to English and use what we've discussed already previously.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, no,
I think that example kind of shows you that sometimes you're put in a situation where you actually cannot translate. And what do? Leave the room? Not teach? No, you got to get through it somehow, right?
Yeah.
They will learn something. It's just that maybe there's the odd word that they might struggle, and you move the class on. You know. I would say multilingual groups would be okay if everyone was Latin, right? If everyone was French, Portuguese, you know, Romance languages, you know, Romanian. But if you had people from you know, perhaps Russia, Asia, different parts, I think that might be a struggle.
Yeah.
You know? Right, Rob, do you want to read the next one?
So when I have a group and they talk to each other in Spanish, I say, I challenge you to try to explain to your classmates in English. I think they realise it ultimately helps them in their English. I agree. I do the
I've done
same.
this as well.
Yeah, I do it a lot actually. If they're speaking, which some
that's
students
good.
will try to do to speak to each other in Spanish. I say, come on,
Yeah.
let's say exactly the same now, but say it in English.
I like that, because what that's doing is, rather than you become the authoritative figure, you're actually saying, you know, you're kind of moving to their level. So it's maybe a good way to perhaps influence people if you want. What else? Michael, you can read the next one.
But that doesn't mean never translate. Feel free to do it to a minimum, but just be aware that translating something from one language to another doesn't mean you have fluency. That's the key.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the point that the person's making is that we can't really be dogmatic. You know, we have to allow the odd exception. But you know, it looks as though we've kind of, and for most cases, we've come up with ideas and ways that we can avoid it. But yeah, okay. I don't know if there's any more questions or points after that. But I don't know.
Do we have more questions?
Guys, any more?
Doesn't look like it. Well, okay. Yes, we do. All right. I remember a teacher once said, imagine you are teaching maths. Translating is like providing the answer to an equation without giving your students the chance to figure out the answer by themselves. Yeah, do you agree with that? I like it. It's a nice.
Put very nicely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, teaching English is different from learning math, but it does make a good point that why not challenge someone to come up with the answer themselves? I think this brings us on to a point that I don't know if we've made this point yet, but if you come up with the answer yourself, you're more likely to remember it than if someone tells you.
Yeah.
So translating is basically like a shortcut. It's like someone giving you the answers to a test. Just like this person said, it's like someone giving the answer to a test. Are you going to remember it next time? Probably not. All right. Well, we have a question now.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Don't cheat though, guys. Do you allow your students to translate to Spanish between them? We talked about this before, but let's talk about this a bit more. So tell me about a time, Rob, when someone whispered to their colleague the app.
Yeah, there's certain classes that I have where before you've even finished a sentence, they've translated for the English student.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can say, okay, please don't do that. Next time if you want to explain to the student, do it. Try and do it in English.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to stop.
Yeah.
I kind of play the clown a little bit and sort of slap the table and say, "Hey, no more Spanish."
I have an advice of try and set up the room better. So okay, I'll give you an example. Right, I once did a web class, and it was me talking to a group of people, and the group of people were together in a room, which meant that I was probably this giant head up on the wall, and they were sitting together, so they were down here. In a way, there was a big distance. Now, they translated between them all the time, and I found it really difficult to control the room. And I thought, you know what? If they'd all been in individual computers, then it might have been a lot easier because they wouldn't have had the chance to. So in that sense, I think the setup of the room might be able to help. Now, in an in-person class, don't know. I mean, maybe, try and sit amongst them or make so that you're part of them rather than they feel it's them and you, Maybe that's why, I don't know if it was your case, but maybe that's why you get some groups of people that feel that they can whisper and talk to each other, Because in a way, you're kind of excluding the teacher when you do that, right?
Yeah, it especially happens if it's a larger group, I find.
Yeah.
If you've got maybe sort of 6, 7, 8 students, then it's very easy while you're talking for one of them just to...
Yeah.
But maybe it's easier, and also if they're trying to help the weaker student, maybe it's a good idea, it is a good idea, just to break it down and say, okay, look, if you're struggling, let's talk about it. Why are you struggling with this word?
Yes.
Rather than saying, hey.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I would say that when someone whispers in someone's ear, it's well intentioned.
But it's also making the person who's weaker feel like they're weaker.
It's true.
Which is not a really nice thing in a
group
mentality.
But often you'll find they'll ask as well.
That's true.
They'll be like, what does this mean? And
Yeah. All right. When you don't understand, you can use what you do understand and ask questions. Explain. I think that word means explain. What do you mean by? So that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. So with the language that someone already knows, they can somehow figure it out. What about low levels, basic levels? What do they do if they don't know what a word is? How do you encourage someone who can only say hello to ask for help?
My low levels.
To be honest, I was thinking low levels a lot of the time it's sort of you're just learning nouns, right? So very simple things. So a lot of the time if they don't understand, you can just draw a picture. I don't know if that's actually a question, but
I guess the lower levels, like you were saying, the abstract stuff is hard to do, but they're not really necessarily.
You don't need to know them. I think maybe in those situations you've got to really stick to the content of the class. I think this is what's important today. All this stuff you will learn eventually. Slow down.
Then you're learning it in context. It's easy to understand.
Then maybe it's more the grammar that comes into it. Maybe more the structure that they struggle with rather than the words for a lower level.
Here's a question for you. This is one that's just come into my head. What would you do if you found a student? The student was someone who you knew before you started to teach them, and they said to you, I want to be able to speak Spanish in class, because I would say
anyone to speak English in class?
I only want to speak Spanish in class. Sorry. So I'll give you the example.
You said Spanish.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you the example. So you found someone, they say, I'd like you to be my teacher.
Okay.
I said, yeah, no problem. You said, yes, but do I have to only speak in English?
Okay.
And of course you say yes. They say, oh, no, I don't want that. So what do you do in that situation when someone doesn't even want to get on board because they're scared. They're probably scared.
You would point out the positives of only having a class in English, I guess. You would have to
and maybe
sit
you
down
could build up to it.
Yeah.
You could build up to
maybe you could ease them in, right? The first couple of classes maybe use a little bit of Spanish until their confidence grows a little bit, and then by class maybe 3, 4, 5. Don't even tell them you're not gonna do it. Just gradually stop using Spanish.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. All right.
What would you do?
What would I do? I would be slightly strict. I would sort of say that well, I'd not strict, but I'd kind of assert myself and say, look, if you want to learn, then trust me, I'm going to get you there. So just don't worry, don't. It might be a bit scary at the beginning, but we've all been there. I've been there myself. Yeah. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fun. You're going to relax. Don't worry.
I think I would have done that before.
Yeah. Sure. Right. We have a comment. What Rob said about translating naturally is correct. Training yourself not to do that is the key. The more you do it, the easier it is.
Which bit was that? Which bit?
I think it was a bit about if I'm a student, I naturally kind of translate from Spanish to English.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a natural thing.
All right. Haha, yes. So I'm not quite sure what they're laughing at, but let's see. Haha, yes. I use pictures, but what I'm trying to say is with some things. There is do you think this is the screwdriver one? There is no way of getting around it. When I show pictures, students understand, but then say it is in Spanish as well as English. Okay. I think this is the screwdriver one, okay? So, yes, so they will you can't, you can't really, it's hard to control people's impulses, I'd say. You know, if they impulsively say, this is, whatever, I don't know the word in Spanish for screwdriver, but this is this, and so, but you can certainly ignore it. You can just be like, screwdriver, you know, so, and that way you're training them not to use, their first language, the L one. Yeah. Do you guys agree? Yeah. I think is another comment. I think ultimately you can't prevent the student from translating their heads. That's what I just said. They will come around to that sort of fluency on their own. Yes. So I think that you got to encourage them to do so, and you can't expect them. You can't control their thoughts. We're not here to do that. So, but you can respond in English and require them to speak to you in English. This will help them express their thoughts differently and ways to improve their fluency. Yeah, cool. Okay, good. We've got a bit of a debate going on here.
Nice.
If we provide the most common context for the word, students figure out the meaning. The most common context for a word.
These questions.
I'd like the comments. Yeah. And we've got another comment about screwdriver. Screwdriver is easy. Teach the verb to drive something into a piece of wood. Show a picture of a screw and explain that it needs to be driven into the wood. Okay, and then we have exactly. All right, so we have a bit of a debate about screwdrivers. Yeah, cool. Okay, what more do we have? So if you need to translate. Exactly. How do we do this? To be a good teacher. Right. Okay. Cool. If you need to translate, and then after the class you come up with a different approach, that is the way to become a better teacher. Okay, this person raises a good point, is that we as teachers should reflect upon what we've done. Absolutely. So if you translate one day, you go and you think, actually, did I need to do that?
Yeah, I think you would always try and think of a way, I had to translate this class, so how am I now going to explain that word so I don't need to translate it in the next class?
Yes. We've talked about when you translate, but I want it to be clear that it's not something we do on a regular basis.
We are talking about extreme examples, and that's a thing. But the reason why we're talking about extreme examples is because if you come across one of these examples, then you'll have thought, you know what, I remember someone talking about this one day. Maybe there is another way of not translating. So can you guys can you think of a time where you did translate something and then you walked away thinking, actually, I really could have.
You put me on the spot there.
Yeah. Well,
can I get back to you?
Yeah. Well, maybe
one of the lessons that I had with a kid, for example. I know I talk about this, my younger students a lot, but I have more of them, and I think perhaps I walked away. Like there was a group of 4 kids that I teach, or I used to, and keeping their attention was really difficult because they would always talk to each other or keep each other on the table all this kind of stuff. And sometimes trying to get their attention, I would translate more. And I walked away thinking, Michael, you could have tried harder to try and keep that situation. But then it was a case of keeping their attention, keeping them engaged, and it's sometimes a trade-off.
It is.
It's not really, I don't know.
How have you had them since that group? Are you translating them?
I don't see them anymore.
You don't see them.
But I think certainly with kids, I think you're building a relationship a lot with kids, and they have to trust you and they have to be comfortable with you, and maybe that is a way to gain their respect. Who knows?
But again, like it's not a daily basis.
No, of course. Yeah. So, okay, we've a couple more points here. So how do teachers manage to go to places where they don't speak the local lingo and yet their students learn English? Would you like to answer the question, Michael?
How do go to places where they don't speak? Well, that's kind of what we've been talking about, isn't it? If I didn't speak a word of Spanish and they didn't speak any English, well, we'd have to just have a normal class as normal and translate.
Yeah,
which is what we're trying to do, which is the goal anyway.
It is. It's building blocks. You can't expect. I've said this before. You can't expect the student to know everything. The first day you ever meet a student, and if they've never had a lesson before, the first day you're saying hello and how are you? You know, you're not talking about politics or things like that. What else? How about saying they can speak or translate, but it costs €1 per word? Oh, this is interesting. That's good. Where does the money go, though? That's the thing.
I've done it with pronouncing words wrong every time. I'm like, right, euro, and it works.
Really?
But I've never done it with translation. That's
a really good idea. We said before about like a live system, or like where a kid has 3 lives or 3 strikes, and then so they're only allowed a certain amount of chances to translate. And that's quite good because it'll stop them from doing so because they think, well, I've only got 3 lives, maybe per week or per whatever. Yeah. But pay €1. Yeah, just be careful where the money goes. Maybe to charity.
Holiday fund.
Yeah, sure. Someone said, "What do you mean by screwdriver?" Okay. Well, actually, there's a drink screwdriver, vodka and orange. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Spanish people drink that. If they do. I've never seen a Spanish person drink vodka and orange ever in my life.
Wrong places.
I don't
think it's called the screwdriver.
No, probably not. No, I mean it's not really called a screwdriver in England either. You just say vodka and orange, right? All right. Okay, and then someone has a comment. I set the rule of no Spanish from the very first day, and if they translate between them, I would say English. So they either stop the Spanish or give it a go in English. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So this person's obviously a little bit strict, and they. Which is fine, and it's if you wanna be strict and that's your style of teaching, why not? I don't see why not. And I think if you set that rule right from the beginning, then you have it's kind of like have a contract. You're going to say these are the rules, and this is what you're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, do we have a deal? Yeah, cool.
And I think most students actually appreciate the fact.
They do. I agree.
I think they buy into the whole English English system. I think we're talking about a minority of students.
Yes, it's true.
Who want you to translate or who expect you to translate.
It's true. Or that they forget maybe, and then there is a word and they've forgotten about the whole rule of and okay, let's face it, that when you're learning a second language, it is easier on the mind to translate, but that's not the job here. The class should be stimulating.
Yeah.
And we have another comment about the famous screwdriver. So shows a picture of the screwdriver, but then ask driver, why driver? They ask driver, why driver? Because you're driving something into the wall. But I think sometimes it's okay to say it's okay, it doesn't matter. I think so. I mean, you don't want to say that all the time. When someone says, why is it this way? Oh, it just is. That can come across as that you don't know the content very well.
Yeah.
But it depends. What is the objective of the class? Is the objective about how to build IKEA furniture? So in that case, maybe you can talk a little bit about the etymology of the word. But if it's about the post office, well, it's just come up in conversation, so you can just move on. All right, we have some more comments. If you are new with a student, is there a way to stop the student translating if they had learned previously with somebody who translated? Okay, well, this can apply to lots of things. Right? Yeah, this can apply to lots of things. So they're used to a different teacher. The teacher has allowed them to do all sorts of stuff, whatever that may be. Bad habits maybe. And then they've got to get used to a different teacher. So what do you do? What kind of advice do you have?
I think it's just about setting boundaries and about saying this is who I am and this might be who you were or who the teacher was before. But for me now, and that gives you a platform to actually be stricter or to orchestrate the class to how you want it to be.
Absolutely. I think you've got to let them say no before they've started class. This is how I work. Maybe you've done this in the past, but in my class we're not going to be doing a translation. We're not going to be speaking in Spanish and
sell the benefits.
Sell the benefits. Like we just mentioned before, and I think most people will give it a go.
I'd say so.
I think
I'd say so.
You know.
Now, Do we have one more?
No, I think
No,
I think
we're
that's
done. Okay, all right. So, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you learned a lot today, and thank you for contributing with your questions, your comments, and your screwdriver debate. Well, that's it. That's it from us. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.